I'm going to say welcome to the Operations Masterclass. Thank you for joining us today, and hopefully, at the end of today, you'll be a little bit more informed about the different types of operations within the orbit model. So our objectives today are going to be to have a look at how we can develop our business operations and provide strategies that can help you succeed, and things that you can start implementing immediately. So strategies to increase your efficiency and your quality, improve consistency in your team, and as always, create the business that you want. So this is all about getting things working the way that you want them to. So I'd like you to think about some of your objectives today. Have you got any specific objectives that you'd like to get out of today? Just have a little think about that. And welcome there, Joe. We've just started. So hi. Just thinking about any objectives you want to get out today, and you can pop those into the chat. And if you've got any questions along the way, then I'll try and get those answered as well. Okay, so as you know, we're going around the orbit model, and this is one of our legs. So the orbit model, thinking of the body, we've done the head side, and we've done the torso, sort of the finance side. So we're now on one of the legs, one of the things that keeps us upright and helps propel us forward. The mnemonic for this is works, and it's all about making sure we can deliver those consistent quality standards. So we're looking at workflows initially, then level 2 is how we can optimize what we're doing. Level 3 is all about how we can get results or monitor those results and everything. Level 4 is about building that knowledge and having sort of more operational knowledge throughout the business. And level 5 is about having that specialist or that senior person who can run your operations for you effectively. So as I say, we're here in the Bright business model, the 7-sector business model, and this is the third of our masterclasses. So and we've got 3 more to go after this. So we're nearly halfway through, which is lovely. Okay, so let's just look at our model and how we do the scoring as well. So at the end of the session, I'll give you the opportunity to score yourselves on each of these areas. So as we go through, just sort of think about, well, where am I on that scale of 1 to 10, which gives you an indication of how much work you need to do, sort of thing, within this sector. So let's have a look at some of the challenges as I see them at the moment within our sector, within the operations area. So I think ensuring that we can deliver the same consistent service to our families every day, I think that's really important, especially if we're moving away from the business. That's kind of quite a critical factor. And where we've got more than one provision as well, how do we ensure that that consistency is going to happen? Being able to maximise our efficiency, efficient working with integrating our systems and keeping things secure. So again, by working more efficiently, looking at the ways that our systems do work together, can actually buy back our time and buy back our staff's time as well. Achieving our goals and our projects through effective project management systems. So looking at how we share information, how we propel things forward through good project management, and growing the business to be able to afford extra operational team members. Sometimes when we want to grow, even if we're just growing one site, we need to look at, we've done the finance masterclass and come up with some ideas of how we can increase our income along the way. But that then affords us to be able to have those extra operational people that can then support further growth, or support us having to spend less time in the business ourselves. Okay, so my question to you guys is, are you working as a business owner or as a manager? And I'm sure there's a range of answers there, and sometimes we're doing a bit of both. What can you do, if that is what you want to do, to transition from one to the other? And even if you want to transition just, you know, not for every day of the week, but for some days of the week, spending that time out of the business, either working on the business or getting a greater work-life balance. So I've got a little exercise here for you. So you'll need a pen and paper, and this is just a little bit of fun. I'm going to play a bit of music. So the exercise is for you to draw a picture of how to make toast. So this is kind of one of the icebreakers I've used in my training before. So very simply, a couple of minutes, I'm going to pop on a bit of music, get out your pen and paper, and we'll have a look later at what your drawings were like. But can you hear the music?
No, I can't hear it.
Okay, hold on a sec then. Let me just make sure that I've got my sound. No, I haven't got my share sound on, so I'm just going to share the sound. And hopefully,
in the eye chair, thinking,
can you hear it now?
Looking at the tray and thinking, what I've
That's given you enough time.
Evening all.
I'm just going to stop that. So has anybody got a picture of the toast they've drawn willing to show to me? Brilliant. Okay, into the toaster, and yeah, perfect. And oh, look, you've even spread it with a little bit of with bread, with butter and jam.
I have no idea if that's what you meant.
Yeah, that's exactly what I meant. Have you got one for us, Joe?
I've only done, well, I'm the worst drawer in the whole world, and I thought we was only allowed to do one picture, so I've done an instruction in one picture.
That's absolutely fine. No, that's great. That's great. That's lovely. It's just a bit of fun, and we'll come back to that. Back to that shortly, because it links in directly into, you know, how we're managing our operations. Okay, so let us continue with that. Okie dokie. Okay, so I'm going to ask, how well does your business run with you? I'm sure that for most of us, we're organised, and when we're in the building, things are looking good. Everything is in the right place. People, you know, we're there to refer to with our staff teams, and you know, because we're there, potentially they make sure that they're doing everything, you know, sort of correctly and right. But actually, that's not always the best way to be able to do things, because if our staff are reliant on us, if they need us as a reference point, if they need us to be able to sort of tell them what to do, then we're not empowering them enough. You know, I hear a lot of people complain that their staff teams, that they don't think about things ahead of time. So we need to be able to get them to think for themselves whilst do things the way that we want them to do. So that's a sort of process and a project really that we have to run through. So my next question is, how well does it run without you? And what happens potentially if you're not there sort of directing traffic and things? Does it fall apart and become a little bit chaotic without that sort of direction?
Do you find that, I don't know about anybody else, that it's not that the day-to-day running isn't working? I shared with Tricia, I'm not great today. It's just keeping that momentum sometimes, and that give it a push, that kind of thing. Like, I guide the managers really now and sort of say, right, today, this week, we're focusing on, or this time of year, we're doing transition, that kind of thing. I don't know about everybody else.
Don't know, we can explore that one.
We've been able to really change things since we had our ops manager in place. So I'm in business with my sister, and we were sort of doing literally everything, and we've got 4 settings now, but we actually got her in place after setting number 3, and we have completely stepped away from the business now, and we do, well, taking Tricia's advice, we had a one-to-one with Tricia early doors, and we very seldom even go into the nurseries anymore, whereas we would make sure that we were in there every single week. So we've literally, I was a bit late on because we've just had a Zoom meeting with the ops manager, so we just have a catch up once a week, and then if we need anything doing, we just let her know, and then vice versa, and then she runs it for us. It's difficult to let go, but once you do, it's bloody amazing.
Well, and it is, and it's all about therefore inputting, you know, what we're going to go through today in order to keep that momentum going. It's so that we just need to go in and sort of spin the wheel, because everybody knows what they should be doing, but invariably what happens is people are doing other people's jobs. You know, you're doing a bit of the manager's job, the manager's doing a bit of the senior's job, the senior's doing a bit of the room leader's job, and I don't know who's doing the nursery nurse's job, but sometimes the manager, you know, so it's about getting everybody in the right place as well, and that's where systems and things can come in to help along the way.
I think my ops manager's been on mat leave, so when she comes back in July, that will help that. And then just I hope you don't mind me asking, but in terms of Ofsted, because I'm the director of the company, I have to be on Ofsted, but I can then nominate the ops manager and then the managers of the settings. Is that right? So they would deal with all of that.
Well,
oh, sorry, Tricia. We've actually just had an Ofsted. We were the first in our area to be. We were overdue 30 months, and so yeah, we were literally the week they came back. They were there on the Wednesday, and for the very first time ever, I wasn't there.
God, I bet that was hard.
How did you do? What rate did you get?
We got a good,
Yeah,
but I actually appealed it because they absolutely smashed it on the day. And the reason that she gave us verbally, and I would record this now, moving forward, I will record the feedback. Me and my sister did go for the feedback, and she was just like, this is amazing, you've done this, you've done that. And it was just, and we were thinking, this is we're getting outstanding, this is brilliant. And I'm delighted to tell you you've got a good. We were like, what? And the reason why she didn't give us an outstanding, she said at the time, was because she just felt, she said, you are literally at the very, very top of good, which doesn't really help. But it's the difference between to be outstanding, it's being at a point where you would go out and disseminate to other settings. And it wasn't until after she'd gone, I was like, well, hang on a minute, I've got a setting coming in next week. You know, our ops manager was in a university yesterday giving a lecture to the you know, to the people that are doing a degree. So we are disseminating. So you can't do, anyway, I appealed it, and then her response that came back was, because you only embedded in the moment planning fully when you came back after lockdown, it needs to be embedded even further.
Yeah.
I don't know how, because during the feedback she said, you are one of the few settings that understands in the moment planning, and all of your staff really understand it. So I don't know. We're a bit flummoxed as to her reasoning, but however, you know, that's absolutely fine. But yeah, it was our ops manager and manager that did it, and Lizzie and I stayed out of the way and just came in for the feedback. And
so, and I think that's the point, you know, going back to the question. That's brilliant that you've had an Ofsted and got a good. I think a good under the new framework is good enough.
Good.
Yeah.
But you would still have to be the person who reports things and everything that are reportable by the registered person, but you can have a nominated person who can do certain things. But if you had a change of manager or other certain criteria, you have to report as registered person, because that's written into the legislation. But they can manage the inspection and everything like that. That's not a problem, because you can delegate that down.
Okay, cool.
Right, so we need to make sure that everything that's happening is being delivered consistently. And if you think about some of these companies here, and when you see the logos, then think about, you could go into any McDonald's anywhere around the world and you get the same burger. I'm in favour of the McDonald's in Spain because you can get a beer in there as well, but that's another matter. But that, to have that consistency, you know, is incredible. And think about other companies such as John Lewis and what their ethos is, and how that is portrayed by every staff member that you might meet within John Lewis, and how that comes across. And these are people who have, that's the Burj Al Arab, you know, that 7-star hotel, I think it is, in Dubai. That again, the level of service, the level of standard, how do they achieve that? How do they reach that? And the likes of FedEx, who when, I think one of their strap lines is, when it absolutely has to be there overnight, sort of thing. And there is a story about FedEx whereby they got this promise, this is their guarantee, we will get it to you overnight. And ultimately this one person had been let down, and the agent organised, he said, I'll get it done for you. And it was eventually it was 3 planes and a vehicle to get it to where it needed to be. And the MD found out about this and sort of gave him a real rollicking for it, and then said, but well done for getting it there overnight, you know, for the cost of it. But they'd met the promise, sort of thing. I can't remember what the actual article was, but it was obviously something very important. And then Zappos as well, so the same sort of principle there of delivering happiness, you know, how do we deliver happiness? And there's a story there about somebody phoned up very late at night wanting a pizza. Zappos do shoes, so obviously not in the pizza business, and this person organised them a pizza because they were delivering happiness, and again got a similar sort of response from the boss on that one as well. So how can we make sure that we're delivering in a consistent way, and what are we delivering consistently? You know, we have to make sure, first of all, that what we've got is good, and it's okay to be good. Outstanding is great, but I think it's something that Ofsted even are moving away from. But as long as we can be good, that's great, because that's something we can duplicate and replicate. But there's no point turning on the tap if you've got that leaky bucket. If things aren't working right anywhere in the business, we need to look at that, dissect it, and clear it up. So, you know, where you've got frustrations going on, things that frustrate you, things that frustrate the manager, complaints coming in from parents about anything, or complaints coming in from staff, we need to look at what our standards are and what that quality is, and therefore look at how we can raise that if it's not right, and then make sure that we're getting all of these basics done brilliantly, because then once we know we've got this smooth running machine, then we can actually then replicate that and make sure that the systems are all recorded as well, so that when staff change, when things change, we've still got the systems in place. That's the consistency that comes from that. So in the words of Tony Robbins, it's identify your problems, but give your power and energy to the solutions. Tend to, when we come up with a problem, you know, we kind of go, oh no, what are we going to do? And this never happens. And, you know, there can be a lot of complaining. There can be a lot of, you know, moaning, which is energy in the wrong direction. Essentially, you know, the way that we tackle something is, you know, okay, we reflect on it, right, what happened, what went wrong, right, now what do we need to do about it? We work on the solution and put our energy into making sure it doesn't happen again. So that's quite an important mindset to get into when you're dealing with making change and solving frustrations and issues that may occur within the organisation. So we're going to look at like level 1 now. So level 1 is all about the workflows. So this is everything within the business. It can be the customer journey. It can be absolutely any aspect of that, sort of how we manage our customers along the way. It could be an aspect of how we manage a routine at lunchtime or anything like that. And we're going to look at a way in which by processing it out, then we can actually support that consistency and creating that consistency. So we're going to flex, and as it says there, that those 4 items. So the first one being a flow chart. So just like you did there with the toast, creating a flow chart which basically identifies what each step is as you go, what needs to happen before something else can happen. Just a very simple step-by-step flow chart. Now that can be done as a flow chart. So it can be done in a flowchart style, or it can be done as a list as well. So we have a variety of different flowcharts and lists, some for business processes, some for, you know, we do inquiry processes and all of those sorts of things. So start thinking about anything that's not working, right? How can we make it more consistent? How can we build out into a framework that other people can follow? And then what we need to do is actually engage the team in that. So, and it's not just about, well, here it is, this is my idea, away you go, this is how I want it done. It's very much about getting that team on board. And that involves, you know, sort of getting them to be involved in the process of solving the problem. So potentially, you know, you might create a framework, but then engage them in what could be improved on that, so that they feel as though they've made that contribution, and therefore will take it on board and own it when it comes into being, sort of thing. And then whilst we're creating our flex, then we need to think about some other things that we can put in there. So if we think about the customer journey here, then actually what do we do for our customers once they've been with us for a while? Are we actually giving them any additional customer service? You know, how passionate are our team about delivering some extras for them? How well do we build up that relationship with them after they've become a customer? You know, sort of if they've been with us 2, 3 years, you know, before they're leaving, you know, what have we done in respect to making that journey for them, you know, a little bit interesting, in the point that this is the sort of whole retention of customers as well. So do we do anything that could be called that wow factor, basically? and how do we build that into what we're doing. So if we go back, if we think about what these things are, these are what I call critical non-essentials, things that you don't have to do, things that they may cost a little bit of money. They can be things that actually don't really cost very much at all. But what I would challenge is, what can you do that can make you stand out to your customers at a point in their customer journey that isn't the point of entry or the point of exit? It's all of those things in between that that we can do as an organisation. So and some of the things that we have built in to us, I suppose, and this is about building this consistency. And if you think about it, you know, when you go into McDonald's, then you're always greeted with a smile and a "how can I help you?" So it's those sorts of things that cost nothing. It's those sort of standards that you always approach a customer in a specific way. We have a standard way of answering the phone, for example, so which includes, you know, "how can I help you?" So that customers always feel welcome, you know, along the way. And it's about building in these X factors, these wow moments into the steps that you're creating, and thinking, so after a certain period of time, right, let's do something extraordinary for them. So let's pop in a bit of a wow moment for them there, which, you know, it could be anything. And if you think about the longevity of your customer, and when we come to do the marketing side, we'll look at the value of a customer sort of thing. This is a great investment potentially, because they will then bring you other customers. And then just think about those, other than entry and exit, just those other sort of wow things that you can bring in to them onto their journey. So we're going to hear a little bit more about toast now. And this is actually a TED talk that where I got this concept from, and I thought it was just very interesting to see, you know, the extent to which you can build in processes and consistency within the business. So this is, and I can't remember how long it is. I know TED Talks go up to 15 minutes. I don't think it's 15 minutes, but I will. I'll pop it on for you now. So let me know if you can't hear.
Some years ago, I stumbled across a simple design exercise that helps people understand and solve complex problems. And like many of these design exercises, it kind of seems trivial at first, but under deep inspection, it turns out that it reveals unexpected truths about the way that we collaborate and make sense of things. The exercise has 3 parts, and it begins with something that we all know how to do, which is how to make toast. It begins with a clean sheet of paper, a felt marker, and without using any words, you begin to draw how to make toast. And most people draw something like this. They draw a loaf of bread, which is sliced, that put into a toaster. The toaster is then deposited, course of time. It pops up, and then voila, after 2 minutes, toast and happiness. Now, over the years, I've collected many hundreds of drawings of these toasts, and some of them are very good because they really illustrate the toast-making process quite clearly. And then there are some that are, well, not so good. They really suck, actually, because you don't know what they're trying to say. Under close inspection, some reveal some aspects of toast making while hiding others. So there's some that's all about the toast, right? And there's all about the transformation of toast. And there's others that are all about the toaster, okay? And the engineers love to draw the mechanics of this. And then there are others that are about people. You know, it's about visualizing the experience that people have. And then there are others that are about the supply chain of making toast that goes all the way back to the store. It goes through the supply chain networks of teleportation and all the way back to the field and wheat. And that one actually goes all the way back to the Big Bang. So it's crazy stuff. But I think it's obvious that even though these drawings are really wildly different, they share a common quality. And I'm wondering if you can see it. Do you see it? What's common about these? So most drawings have nodes and links. So nodes represent the tangible objects like the toaster and people, and links represent the connections between the nodes. And it's the combination of links and nodes that produces a full systems model. It makes our private mental models visible about how we think something works. So that's the value of these things. And what's interesting about these systems models is how they reveal our various points of view. So for example, Americans make toast with a toaster. That seems obvious, whereas many Europeans make toast with a frying pan, of course. And many students make toast with a fire. I don't really understand this. A lot of MBA students do this. So you can measure the complexity by counting the number of nodes, and the average illustration has between 4 and 8 nodes. At less than that, the drawing seems trivial, but it's quick to understand. And more than 13, the drawing produces a feeling of map shock. It's too complex. So the sweet spot is between 5 and 13. So if you want to communicate something visually, have between 5 and 13 nodes in your diagram. So though we may not be skilled at drawing, the point is that we intuitively know how to break down complex things into simple things and then bring them back together again. So this brings us to our second part of the exercise, which is how to make toast, but now with sticky notes or with cards. So what happens then? Well, with cards, most people tend to draw clear, more detailed, and more logical notes. You can see the step-by-step analysis that takes place. And as they build up their model, they move their nodes around, kind of rearranging them like Lego blocks. Now, though this might seem trivial, it's actually really important. This rapid iteration of expressing and then reflecting and analyzing is really the only way in which we get clarity. It's the essence of the design process. And system theorists do tell us that the ease with which we can change a representation correlates to our willingness to improve the model. So sticky note systems are not only more fluid, they generally produce way more nodes than static drawings. The drawings are much richer. And this brings us to our third part of the exercise, which is to draw how to make toast, but this time in a group. So what happens then? Well, here's what happens. It starts out messy, and then it gets really messy, and then it gets messier. But as people refine the models, the best nodes become more prominent, and with each iteration, the model becomes clearer, and because people build on top of each other's ideas. What emerges is a unified systems model that integrates the diversity of everyone's individual points of view. And so that's a really different outcome from what usually happens in meetings, isn't it? So these drawings can contain 20 or more nodes, but participants don't feel map shock because they participate in the building of their models themselves. Now, what's also really interesting that the groups spontaneously mix and add additional layers of organization to it. To deal with contradictions, for example, they add branching patterns and parallel patterns. Oh, by the way, if they do it in complete silence, they do it much better and much more quickly. Really interesting. Talking gets in the way. So here's some key lessons that can emerge from this. First, drawing helps us understand the situations as systems with nodes and the relationships. Movable cards produce better systems models because we iterate much more fluidly. And then the group notes produce the most comprehensive models because we synthesize several points of view. So that's interesting. When people work together under the right circumstances, group models are much better than individual models. And so this approach works really great for drawing how to make toast. But what if you wanted to draw something more relevant or pressing, like your organizational vision, or customer experience, or long-term sustainability? There's a visual revolution that's taking place as more organizations are addressing their wicked problems by collaboratively drawing them out. And I'm convinced that those who see their world as movable nodes and links really have an edge. And the practice is really pretty simple. You start with a question, you collect the nodes, you refine the nodes, you do it over again, you refine and refine and refine, and the patterns emerge. And the group gets clarity, and you answer the question. So this simple act of visualizing and doing it over and over again produces some really remarkable outcomes. What's really important to know is that it's the conversations that are the important aspects, not just the models themselves. And these visual frames of reference can grow to several hundreds or even thousands of nodes. So one example is from an organization called Rodale, big publishing company. They lost a bunch of money one year, and their executive team for 3 days visualized their entire practice. And what's interesting is that after visualizing the entire business, systems upon systems, they reclaimed $50 million of revenue, and they also moved from a D rating to an A rating from their customers. Why? Because there's alignment from the executive team. So I'm now on a mission to help organizations solve their wicked problems by using collaborative visualization. On a site that I've produced called drawtoast.com, I've collected a bunch of the really, I think, best practices, and so you can learn how to run a workshop here. You can learn more about the visual language and the structure of links and nodes that you can apply to general problem solving, and download examples of various templates for unpacking the thorny problems that we all face in our organizations. So the seemingly trivial design exercise of drawing toast helps us get clear, engaged, and aligned. So next time you're confronted with an interesting challenge, remember what design has to teach us. Make your ideas visible, tangible, and consequential. It's simple, it's fun, it's powerful, and I believe it's an idea worth celebrating. Thank you.
Okay. So, I thought that was very useful in the scheme of what we're talking about within our operations, because especially with the direction of travel now in respect to what Ofsted expect from us within our inspection process, they do expect the team to be much more knowledgeable, to be able to answer any question in relation to the children and that side of things. And sometimes I think we haven't involved staff members enough in the past, and that's kind of what lets us down, because they're not engaged and they're not empowered enough to know and understand what it is they're doing, why they're doing it, and everything. So I thought that was a very useful resource if you were revisiting any aspect of the business, say like organizational vision and those other things. So that was drawtoast.com, and there could be some useful resources there for future reference. But just if you're building a system, however small, then that links and nodes idea, that concept is the basis of your flowchart, really. Okay, so let's have a look at why customers might stop buying from us. And this is obviously, when I'm doing some of the bright things, it's generic to all sorts of businesses, not just early years. So some of this is relevant in different ways to us. So 4% leave because they move, they get transferred, their life circumstances change. 5% change because a friend says, oh, try this, it's much better. With those sorts of people, keeping them in touch with you. Obviously, most of our families only have a short life cycle from sort of a 4-year life cycle. That said, we do keep in touch with people, and we've got people back as after school children, sometimes when we've kept in touch with them from nursery. 9% change because there's a competitive advantage somewhere else. So that's either a better product or service, usually price. So that's 9%. So 14% change because they're unhappy with your service or product. So these are sometimes the parents you can never please. But there's just something that's not congruent for them, or an incident has happened that hasn't been dealt with well. And it's actually interesting that so research generally shows it's very often not the incident that is the cause of somebody leaving. It's more likely the way it's been managed and handled. So that's where your sort of customer service skills need to come into their own. But actually 68% of people leave potentially because there's a perceived lack of caring expressed by the company. So again, it's that if we're not having those touch points with our customers during their journey with us, then they gradually become, you know, less happy with us because they don't hear from us on that level. They don't feel we care. I'm not saying we don't care for the children. I'm saying from the company perspective, that the company itself is, you know, we all know what sort of reputation some nurseries have in the world for being, you know, sort of just after profit and all of those sorts of things. So this can make a real difference to people's perception of your organisation. Okay, so how can we improve our business performance? And this is actually a model that comes from somebody that Emerson has worked with, that looks at all these aspects of how we can improve all areas of our business, but specifically the operations and then sales and marketing and client satisfaction. So it's quite a detailed thing, so I'm just going to sort of run through it. So it's kind of like what people do, what most people do. When we seek growth, when we're looking to grow, we'll invest more in sales and marketing and those sorts of tools, websites, newsletters and things. But then, you know, we're not really sort of communicating well with our people, and we're not getting any sort of feedback from them. So it costs a lot of money, and we're trying to sort of sell to people that aren't, you know, sort of interested in what we've got to say because they're strangers to us. We haven't done anything with them. So this is kind of like what the way it usually works. So you've got, you know, a large cost, a low return, very little referrals, retention, and those sorts of things. So that's what normally happens. That's all right. So this is the other way to do things. Start looking at ways in which you can do things differently. And then he has this this piece of software that they do a free trial. I'd have to tell you about it afterwards because I haven't got all the company details and things like that. But they do a free trial on their system, sort of thing. So they do customer interviews, talk to customers, find out what they are happy about, find out what they're not happy about. And it's going through that engagement process of how we engage our customers, and then how we work, you know, spend time with them, give them the content and things that they're after, and we can then start to think about how we automate our marketing side of things. That gives us a bigger return from the referrals, and that's huge in our sector, I know. So you know, people bringing along friends, other families and things, and therefore you've got, you know, a lower investment and a higher return, higher referrals, opportunities to cross-sell if you sell other products and services and things, and you've got retention there, not quite as high. So this is the thing about solving a problem. So if you've solved a problem with somebody who's not happy, then you've got more insight into the way you can deliver things, the way that you've managed the situation. You can improve your operations there, and therefore your retention can be increased, which gives you an even bigger return. So your unhappy customer doesn't leave, goes and tells other people about how well you've managed the situation and everything, and you get that that better retention. And I think his system is something to do with how we automate this engagement process with our customers, with getting this feedback involved. Okay, so So systematic process of client engagement delivers improved business and financial performance through enhancing that client satisfaction, our operational efficiency, and the effectiveness of your sales and marketing. So looking at getting more and more referrals as well through from your customers. And thinking about how we do that. So we do try and engage our customers along the way. We have a few what I would call sort of wow factors. We send them postcards for when their children have done something extraordinary. And aside from sort of the parent engagement events, we do other little things along the way that are unexpected, I suppose. And I always try and think of the right example here, but I can never bring up the right example at the right time. The one thing that we do regularly, though, is we do ask our customers how satisfied they are. We use somebody called CEDA surveys. CEDA are the people who do a lot of the research for the people like the Early Years Alliance, and a lot of the research for government in relation to the national minimum wage and things like that. They were the ones that were involved in that. But they have an early years suite of surveys, and we use the customer facing ones, and they do one for your inquiries, so you can send a survey to people who've been to visit you and get some feedback on how that went, the inquiry and the visit process. They do one for when children move rooms, so you can find out what happens there. They do one for an annual survey, so they have an annual survey that you can send out. They do a leavers survey as well, so you can send that to your parents. And each time we do a survey, then we will work through a you said we did type scenario. So we're feeding back to our customers about what they've told us and what we've done about it. So working on that sort of improvement process. CEDA also do have a staff survey within their suite. We used to use it, but we now use the engagement multiplier one that you would have heard about in the leadership masterclass. But of course, you don't have to, buy in a package to do this. You could create your own on SurveyMonkey. Just taking in that information and doing that customer sort of satisfaction and finding out, what are those frustrations for them within the business, can achieve great strides, basically. And so if you're not doing this regularly, then it's something that you should put into place from that point of view. We do it regularly. As you know, we do it regularly with the staff, so we're finding out how engaged they are. And at the moment, we do it annually with the parents, but we're also taking in the new parents as and when we're doing it when they move rooms. So they're having some of those touch points from us to show that we care, that we're interested in what they've got to say, that we still want to know how the experience has been for them, and we want to take on that feedback from them as well. Okay, so some tips for improving our operations. Develop some customer service values. Think about what those standards are that you have with your parents. I mean, I'll give you an example of one of ours. We always answer the phone within 5 rings. Now, that's not always an easy thing to achieve in a nursery, but there's somebody on, essentially on phone duty. If the manager's going to be in a meeting, then the phone gets given to somebody else to be able to answer, because that's important. That's the first point of contact. And of course, Ofsted can be on the end of the phone. So we always want to make sure that, we give that right message from immediate point of contact. Do something that's memorable from that critical non-essentials thing. So it's coming up with that thing that is that will stay in their memory. And different people have different views on what this might be, but us sending a postcard, for example, saying thank you for visiting us, you know, that's something that might just be popped onto the fridge maybe, or be left on the table. So things that we'll do along the journey, and we do, as I say, postcards for children for their achievements and things as well later on. Develop a how-to manual. So where to start, sort of thing. Well, if you've got nothing in place at the moment, then, you know, make a list, make a flow chart, then get the team involved in whichever form, as you took sticky notes or group notes or whatever. Like, right, how do you want to do this? How do we want to do this as a team? And create that how-to manual, because when they've been involved in that, then when you've got somebody new joining, you've got that culture developing of, well, we do it like this, and they'll retain and remember it so much more than just like, oh, here's a bit of paper, this is how we do it. It's like they'll be able to, because they lived it and breathed it, because they've helped create it, sort of thing. Implement a sales process. So I mean, when we come to doing the sales masterclass, we'll go into that into much more detail, but it's not just leaving it to chance, it's having it as a specific sort of process in place with an expected outcome. Carry out a customer survey that we've just talked about. And actually we do also do surveys with our children as well. Our older children who are able to you know, communicate, we'll either give them sort of options of smiley faces about certain things, and with our out of school children it works really well, because then their voice is heard really well on doing a survey with them. Think about what sort of quality control systems you have in place. You know, who's monitoring how well, you know, we're meeting our standards and things, and that's where, you know, audits and things like that can come into play. How do we follow up? You know, how do we follow up with visits that we've had, with inquiries that have come in? Have we got, you know, a system in place and a process in place for that? And how do we implement the delivery of our key performance indicators? So again, does everybody know what your key performance indicators are? Will they know, you know, if they've contributed towards that? Or do they know if we've achieved those numbers and things like that? How much information do you sort of share back, so to speak? Collecting testimonials. Now we know that's really key, especially from the social media aspect of things. But if you're getting good testimonials, then it shows that you're delivering a good quality service as well, and then those experiences are being shared with others very openly and publicly, which is great. And measure and test. So you know, anything that we measure, we can improve, but we need to test, you know, what works. Sometimes we're not sort of sure, should we try this? Should we try that? The important thing is we make a decision and we try something and we measure it and see how effective it is before we then decide if this is the way that we're going to go, because it's not always going to be exactly right the first time. So that's about that constant improvement process. So then it's about sort of looking and thinking how we can build out your how-to, your operations manual, and what do you need to do that? Well, first of all, you need to think about your categories. You know, McDonald's will have, you know, a range of different documents, all split into different categories relating to the actual cooking, you know, how you greet the team members, how you greet the customers, and all of those sorts of things. So it's thinking about how you would build your categories. What subsections might you need within that? So we have our operations manual. It's our handbook, so to speak. So we've got 6 categories in ours, and they come down to, in fact, I'm not sure if I've got a slide on that. Yes, I have. I've got a slide on that, so I'll show you what they are. Within our subsections then, in our manual, we have the policy, if there is one, a procedure, and then the working documents. So this is literally, you know, this is our philosophy, our principles. This is kind of what you need to do, and here's the tools that you need to do it with, sort of thing, in various aspects. And then we code all the documents, so anybody can pick up a document and it's got a code on it, and they know actually where that sits within the framework. And also, if they need to go and get a replacement document, then they know exactly where it's filed on the computer. And actually, we have a computer system where all of our documents are available to our team, but they only have read-only access. And then the administration team and the senior team have got access to change things. That way we can make sure that accidents don't happen, things don't get changed. And if they do need to make a change, then it has to come up and we all know about it, and we can make sure then that change is, if necessary, implemented consistently across all of our different nurseries. So it's about thinking about, you know, if you put in a system, you don't want it to change in one nursery and not in another if it's an improvement, for example. Obviously, there's a process to go through to do that. So yeah, build your operations manual. This is your ultimate sort of system, but don't make it overly complicated. As Tony Robbins says, complexity is the enemy of execution, because it is, you know, it can become a huge document, but it's about thinking about where you are now and how you will start from what you've got, rather than getting overwhelmed with what you need to get, so to speak. So our manager's handbook is now basically turned into what is our Born Manager, and we've got these 6 areas here. So we have safeguarding, staff development, the nursery administration, the financial operations, the customer care, and our curriculum program. So everything sits within one of those areas, and then each of those areas has subsections of varying lengths, varying numbers and things like that. So everything is divided down, and then the policies are placed within that as well. So policy, procedure, and working documents where necessary. Sometimes it's just working documents because there is no need. Some things don't need an explanation, but for the most part we try and have that, you know, this is how we use this, that how-to guide in there. Okay, so that's sort of level 1, looking at our workflows and how we build in our systems there. Shall we take a short break, short 5-minute comfort break, and I will come back to you. Has anybody got any questions? They want to pop anything into the chat or anything? Then please do. Otherwise, okay, I'm just going to take a quick break. I'll see you in a couple of minutes. You say if we come back at 11:34. Okay, so hopefully everybody had the chance to get them some refreshments, and we can get started again. Do you guys just want to let me know that you're back? Little thumbs up, perfect. Okay, that's great. Reaction, quick hi in the chat. Okay. Might just be you and me, Mel. That's fine. Oh, sorry. You're on mute.
I just had to grab a jumper. I was so cold.
Lizzie's here.
I'm here. I'm just.
That's fine. That's okay. Right, let's get ourselves started again then. Excellent. Okay. Okay. So let us then look now at the next level, at optimizing our sorts of IT systems and things. So let's just make sure it's working. Okay, so what we're looking to do here is to create systems within our organisation that are more efficient, more effective, robust, and help support that consistency. So it's about looking at things that we can improve, things that we can integrate, things that we can install, and things that allow us to inspect and give us information and things that we would want. So we often have, some systems in place, but we don't always look at how they can work together within the organisation. So it's very much about thinking that we need to bring these things together if we want to grow, certainly, because what starts off with things that we can do, and we can, train other people to do, but if it's taking too much of their time, and again, it's about buying back that time. Time is our most precious commodity, ultimately. So the more we can automate and the more we can integrate, then the easier it's going to be to build consistency and efficiency and to grow as well. So here's an example I'll talk through of how some things can be linked within the organisation. We've often all got our own nursery software. I know not everybody has nursery software, and some people are looking at getting it, which is great, because that's the first thing that can help make things a little bit more efficient for us, rather than sort of manual registers or Excel spreadsheets and things like that. We can get all the children in one place in a system that can produce for us the opportunity to have registration registers, and we can do invoicing on it. With good nursery software, you should be using if they've got the inquiry facility, so actually your children start coming in as an inquiry. Taking it back a step from there, there's opportunities to link in from your website, for example, that the inquiries can come into your nursery management software. So you've got a direct sort of feed in to there as well. So making everything as easy as possible from the customer journey point of view on that side, and once they've arrived, using this software to be able to communicate with them, save having to sort of find email addresses and things like that, being able to just send information directly from the system to a customer. All of these things speed up what we can do. We also, what I find in some places that got nursery software is who's got access to it. And actually, sometimes when that access is restricted, it restricts what people can do. So we should be mindful of who can access software. Usually, most packages, you can have different levels of access. So if they only need to access one specific area, then that's fine. They don't have to access absolutely everything. So it's important that you make the most of the software that you've got, and very often we don't. We use maybe 25% of its capacity a lot of the time. And yes, there's a process to go through in learning what you could be doing. All those things they told you about when you bought the package and that you're not using. And it's about making the time and the effort to learn those things, or getting in the support for somebody that can help you move along, what that package can do. Going back to the original company even, and saying, right, you told me it could do this, show me how. So once you've got, everything sort of on that side automated, then thinking about things that feed into that learning journals. Very often the learning journey isn't always going to be the one that you want in that package. So when you're looking for a package, it's important that you get those two things congruent. A lot of people use Tapestry and then different software and things. but so look for the ones that can do everything all in one, because even with Tapestry, and you know, hands up, we do use Tapestry and we use nursery software as well, and I know, and I'm aware of it, we've got a double entry there. We've got double entry of children. When we took on our nursery software, they didn't do the learning journals, and we already had Tapestry. So, you know, some things evolve, and I'm aware that that's a system that we need to improve over time, which we will do. So think about, you know, as I say, what can be conjoined. Then think about as well things like your accounting package. So very often accounting and accounts is seen as a sort of completely separate function, done by somebody else, done by the accountant. And that can be actually quite an expensive way of knowing and understanding your numbers. There's no reason, you know, there's lots of modern sort of accounting packages now, and actually Sage is coming out of the dark ages a little bit on this as well, but Xero, I think QuickBooks and things, whereby they're easy for people to learn to use, or get a bookkeeper who can use them. But then once you start syncing what you're doing, your invoicing on your nursery software with your accounts, then that again can make life so much easier. And when I'm talking accounting here, I'm talking full accounting from the point of view of sometimes with accounts, companies will take, oh, that's our sales figure from our nursery management software, we'll just pop that into our accounts. Whereas when I say full accounting, I mean, here's all of our customers on our nursery software, here's all of our customers on our accounting package. So it's running as a sort of full accountancy system, and getting that integrated, because you can export information from your software into your accounting, and there are other ways, depending on, you know, how you do other systems, where you can integrate your accounting package into your nursery software. So if your accounting package, for example, was integrated with your bank, and you took in all your payments and then allocated them directly from your bank statement into your customers' accounts on your accounting package, you can then export that information into your nursery software, so it allocates those payments to each individual customer. So it's just thinking about ways in which things can be done for growth, done properly, sort of thing, in that respect. And then when you've got other things, some of you may be aware of the funding portal. At the moment, the funding portals were always manual. You know, sometimes they populated the information, but they didn't always get it right from the local authorities. But there's a new integration there from the nursery software now, and I think a lot of the software companies can use this, whereby you can export your information on your children. And again, this is about good data entry in your nursery software, but you export that information into something called Funding Loop, and that's an excellent tool for speeding up the process of getting the parents' signatures and details, you know, child's birth certificates and proof of 30 hours, all those sorts of things. So you export all the information into Funding Loop, for example. You then send emails to the parents saying, you know, please confirm these are your hours. It's basically your parental declaration from your local authority, which Funding Loop do for you from your particular local authority. The parent fills it all in online, you know, uploads everything online, ticks it all off, and then you use that information and then directly feed it into your portal. For us, it took a long time to set up, and I think that's the thing about all of these systems. The initial setting up is where the pain is. That learning and understanding of what it could do, what it can do. But once you've got it there and up and running, once you've been through that, then it saves so much time in the long run. So it's, you know, there is a gain at the end of the pain. So I think, you know, it's worth sort of looking into different things that can help support, you know, you as an organisation. And again, think about where your time is being taken. What do you spend a lot of time on potentially, or what do you spend a lot of money on if you've got an external source? Is that something that can be brought in-house, or is there and you will all have heard me talk about £10 tasks. Is it somebody that you can employ because it's a £10 task sort of thing? So that's sort of looking a little bit at how we can link up some of our technology. And then looking at other ways as well that you can, I suppose, support what you're doing from the point of view of technology and systems. So the QBell was a very interesting development that came out during COVID by the Funding Loop people, which was to save people having to stand in a long queue at the door. They can phone you and let you know. They ring the bell virtually through their app on the phone to let you know they're there, and then you let them know when their child's ready to collect. You know, that brings a whole different sorts of efficiency within the nursery and standing around at the door and those sorts of things. Your phone systems, you know, do you have a phone system that can link you between different sites and things? We have a central phone system, and we can be in one of 6 or 7 buildings, and we can connect through to people in that building. And because it's all done, I say in the cloud, don't ask me how it's done, I just know it is what it is. Obviously it's done through computers and servers and things, but actually the phone calls between those sites are free because they're through the internet. And that was one of the things, you know, analysing what's going on in the business can also sometimes be a prompt to make some efficiencies. You know, we were finding that between our sites there were phone calls of maybe, you know, an hour long. Well, that becomes quite costly when you've got it on a regular phone bill. So part of our push for this was, let's make that investment up front, and then actually we'll see the rewards because our phone bills, you know, came down very much in that respect. Looking at other things, Breathe HR is one. I mean, we'll look at that in a bit more detail. There are other ones as well, but just again automating some of those HR functions. If you're doing things sort of manually, then this can be, you know, a little bit more efficient, and staff holidays, sickness, and tracking all those sorts of things. Bright Pay, that's an example of a pay system. You know, again, depending on who's doing your payroll and how much they charge you for, and there are some very good deals out there, but there are also some expensive prices out there. I've seen people paying for their payroll. It could become an in-house task with online software and that sort of thing. Gigabook is something we use on our website. It takes in our customer inquiries and offers them the option of, well, it used to offer them the option of a phone call or a visit. We don't give out the visits now, they just get the phone call. But rather than just send us a contact form in, then we'll say, oh, you know, we'll give you a 10-minute call, give us your details and the time you want us to call, and we'll phone you back, sort of thing. So it's just a bit more of an interactive tool for engaging people, engaging your customers, you know, on the website. And then it's also then looking at sort of your social media side of things as well. And if you're doing work with social media, then how you can make it easy, if you like, to be able to post out. Again, this is a bit of customer engagement. Post out to all of your different social media from one platform, and there are likes of I'd say Hootsuite, HubSpot, something like that, whereby, you know, you just do it once and then you can automate it to going out all different people. And you can also do that from your website as well. You can do news on your website, which can then automatically be posted to social media. So it's just about thinking about, you know, working this a little bit smarter in respect to your IT systems and how they're working around the organisation. Okay, so that's sort of level 2 in the operations. Level 3 is very much about getting the results, the sort of project management, and looking at, I suppose, what we're trying to achieve when we're undertaking something. Like I've just said, one of the purposes of us changing our phone system was to achieve, cost savings, and it becomes much more efficient as well when we have somebody phone head office and they want to speak to one of the sites, for example. So when we're thinking about the results, then, and what results we want to get, and this is our smart sheet here. So this is sort of thinking about if we want to improve something, then we've got to have it. It's got to have an owner. Somebody's got to take responsibility for that. So managing it as a project to create those better results. So if you wanted to make some change, if you want to integrate better sort of systems, then we've got to define quite clearly who is doing it, who's responsible and in charge of this. And as I always say, just because you're responsible in charge of something doesn't mean to say you do it all, but you're responsible for making sure it's all done. What is it? And being very clear about what it is we're trying to achieve, and being that, I suppose we're kind of talking about sort of smart targets here as well. What it is we're trying to do, and when, making it quite specific as to when we want to get this done by, this improvement, or this project. When do we want to get it completed? And that's about being realistic as well. Because when you're integrating any new system into an organisation, it's never going to go quite as smoothly, especially if it involves computers, as you would like. When we put in Funding Loop, we did it at a slow pace. We did one local authority at a time. We were in 3, rather than trying to do everything all together. And the first one took us maybe, let me just think, probably 3 or 4 months before we got it to where we needed it to be, because we were having to do lots of internal tweaks on our nursery management software to get those integrations right. But then the second one we could do within a month. And the third one, it was just, an easy integration. It was just like, well, we can just say when we're going to do it. So building out that when needs to be quite realistic in that respect. Okay, so thinking about project management and change management, I've kind of looked at the 2 things here together, and sort of compared them. So the change management is different but related. It's different to the project management but related to it. In the same way that if you think about, so my simile here is that your eating utensils are related to the plate. They're different, they're completely different, but obviously using one with the other makes it a bit less messy during mealtime. And when you use them in tandem, then you're going to have a greater success throughout of achieving the sort of project overall. So, potentially project management is just telling people what to do ultimately. But actually, when we use it with change management, then everything becomes much more effective ultimately. So, when you're doing a project, you take responsibility for that. You maybe are planning, assigning, monitoring what people are doing, making sure things are getting done on time, dividing tasks out between team members, deciding what needs to be used where. And so the project manager is responsible for the installing of everything, making sure that all those documents and things are in place. But they're supposed to design the structure of handle how the tasks are going to help the project to be completed. But so that's very much sort of task orientated effectively. The change management, though, is where the human side comes in. So from that perspective, it's the implementation of those practices, and that's kind of, because we're dealing with people, you know, we can put in place, you know, initiate and plan, execute and everything, but we're not going to get that buy-in from people if we're not conscious of that change management and what needs to happen in that respect. So it's very much related to the human aspects of you know, communicating and everything. So in order for any project to be able to be successfully implemented, then we need to be mindful of these two things. We need to have the project plan and the what and everything, but then we need to be conscious of the change life cycle as well. So to successfully integrate these two, then we need to be making sure that we've communicated the vision. You know, what is the company vision in what we're trying to achieve with this particular project? What are we focusing on? The critical success factors. You know, what is it going to do for them? How is it going to enhance, you know, the organisation, that sort of thing, and then sort of making sure that we are leading with empathy. So we need to have you know, a project manager who is mindful of all of these aspects because of the change that is inevitably going to come with regard to a new system of any sort. And you know, there's going to be differing levels of this, but essentially you know, any change that happens, however small, will impact on everybody. So if we're not conscious of that human aspect of it, this is why things can sometimes fail, because we've not taken on board that this is a change, and for some people that can be really difficult. So we need to bear that in mind when we're making these integrations. Okay, so that's kind of looking at the project management side of things and how we can, you know, just be mindful of the planning and the process and the people when we're instigating any change within our operations of any sort. And of course, we're going through a bit of change at the moment with the EYFS, so we might have got, you know, sort of new documents and things like that, and it's how we integrate our new the new wording, maybe completely new methods of working, maybe completely new methods of assessing and things. I know some people are just throwing out tapestry and going back to basics sort of thing. You know, they've completely revolutionized the way that they're doing things. So, you know, all of this will need to be managed carefully. So then level 4 within our operations is looking at our emergency planning, and from an IT perspective, backups and things like that. So if you've got computer systems, then you need to think about several things. How secure is your company data and your intellectual property? Do you take backups of your information? You know, if you've got a laptop, are you backing it up to a central computer somewhere? That central computer, is that being backed up somewhere else so that, you know, should the crisis happen, should an emergency of any sort happen, you've got some sort of recovery plan in place that you can recover your data and everything. Obviously, we all have to be conscious at the moment of cybersecurity. I see lots of emails sort of coming out in relation to this, and making sure that our systems internally are secure from attack externally, and that's, you know, about having good antivirus, firewalls, and those sorts of things. And websites as well, making sure your websites are secure. If you've got people who can enter information on your website, they can get attacked as well. So making sure that you've got those systems in place on your website as well. And your intellectual property, so how easy would that be, you know, to be stolen internally, you know, potentially by your staff, and up to a point there's not much that can be done about that other than in contracts and things like that, and make sure that they understand, you know, these are your documents, and things. But externally as well, if things are stored on servers, how secure are those servers, and those sorts of things. So I'm not an IT expert in any shape or form, but I know a man who is. My partner Paul is in IT, so he looks after all our IT, which is great. I don't have to worry in the same way. The one thing that he alerted me to, probably when we first got together, was the whole content control on what we do in our nurseries and what sort of security we've got internally on our devices that we use. Obviously, these are more popular now than they used to be a few years ago. But he makes sure that with the what can get in, you know, we have content control as to what can get into our nurseries. So our nurseries, for example, can't use Facebook on our nursery computers, because if our nursery computer could use Facebook, it means our tablets could use Facebook. Or you can turn it off, but then you know what children are like, you know, they just find that button. So we have it that they can't use them, and there's certain websites and things that they just can't access from the nursery, and have to do things in a different way. There's also, that also means that we control, content control means we control what can go out. So we don't allow any webmail in our nurseries. So the tablets and things can't get onto webmail in any shape or form. It's banned, sort of thing, it's barred. So they couldn't email out a photograph and things like that. So it's thinking about what sort of security you've got in respect to that within your nurseries as well. But as far as backup and disaster recovery go, so there's two ways to ensure that you've got this disaster recovery in place and that you've got a backup there completely. The other thing to check here as well is your insurance policy, because actually, if you aren't backing up your information in a certain way, then you might not be covered on your insurance for disaster recovery. Doesn't mean to say you won't be covered for the hardware, but you might not be covered for the time it takes to recover that data and information and things like that. So it's just something to sort of check. I checked with our insurance policy. We were doing it a certain way. They said it had to be done a certain way. I talked to them and said, well, we're doing this, 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 and this. And they said, and that it was agreed that we could do it like that. So the Veritas, which is one of these sort of companies, they do a backup system, I think. Or their software, I don't know. I can't remember. I can't remember who Veritas are. But the one system, the way to do it is to have a central server and a backup. So you have a copy of your data on another offsite server, and you do incremental backups and version control, so you can roll back if a mistake's been made, or you need to do a recovery, or somebody's deleted, you know, everything completely. Or anything like that. And actually we can roll back years now. So there was something we came across the other day, and I said, well, I think it was about 2014, and we went and found a backup, reinitiated it, and we went and found this document that for some reason, I can't remember why we were after it, but we found it. So, you know, it's that me being never wanting to throw anything away, it's quite useful in that respect. So that's the one way, to have these physical machines, and then the other way is cloud-based. So when you're in the cloud, obviously you've got, subject to your IP provider going up in flames, but you've got everything there, you know, and you can access it from different places. So if your physical machines went, then you've got everything available in the cloud. So various, sort of systems that you can use, as like the OneDrive, there's Dropbox. Obviously, a lot of software now is cloud-based anyway, so it's not stored on your system. The only thing with the cloud-based is obviously once it's changed, it's changed. So unless you want to get larger and larger folders with old information and things in, that you need to be mindful of, once you've made this decision to change something, then it's gone, so to speak, you might not ever get it back in that format. So just some things to consider in respect to your operations and how you're looking after your own information and things. Okay, so that's level 4 within the orbit. So level 5 then looks at the that director level, that operations director, and some of you may have heard, I celebrated with me, my head of operations from the 1st of June became my operations director. So yay, I've reached level 5 in one of the orbits, which is great. I can put a 10 in that box. So that's my first operational co-director sort of thing. So that's really good. Olivia's waving her hand. Did you want to ask something there, Olivia?
No, I thought it was a clapping hands emoji.
Oh no, okay, that's fine. That's fine. Okay, so what does that mean, effectively? Well, for me, one of the things it means is that she can, subject to Mel's question earlier, actually, she can now become the responsible person, the nominated person for Ofsted, because she's part of the registered person now as a director of the company. She can now be everything Ofsted. She can, I don't need to ever talk to Ofsted again, sort of thing, legally in that respect, which is great. So, but other things that an operations director will do will, take on that total operational responsibility. So she is, completely in charge of the nursery and club operations. She deals with everything within that side of things, with the people, processes. She has a senior team around her, and so she's not doing it on her own. She's got a team of people to support her, and therefore my meetings with her now, effectively board meetings, we can start to look at the KPIs. I can hold her accountable now as a director as to exactly what we're doing as a company and meeting the KPIs that we've set out in our sort of targets to do. We have a continuous improvement ethic, so always, as I've referred to earlier, looking at ways in which we can do things better as an organisation. And then you've got someone there who becomes a different team leader than yourself. I think as Joe was saying earlier, now that they've put a person in as their operations manager, it's taken away the pressure from them, because people have got somebody to go to and not keep constantly asking them those questions and things, and somebody who can be present in the nurseries as well, which gives them their time back. But the other thing that your operations person can do is be that project manager. So again, as owner of the business, and this goes back to sort of the very beginning, you have an idea, how easy is it to implement that idea in the nursery without you being there? And will it all fall apart because you're not there constantly, sort of making it, keeping it rolling, sort of thing. But that's where project management comes into play. Now, once we start talking and looking at project management, it means the ideas that I come up with, I still come up with ideas. I still have, it's still my nursery, my vision, what I want it to be. But those ideas that I have are not going to happen tomorrow, this week, next week. they need to be built into our project management and be project managed and built into the plan. So so with some things it can take longer to achieve that end result, but ultimately it's much better embedded. It's not just an idea out of my head and let's do this. You know, having somebody there who can take those ideas, build them into a project plan, and then implement them. You know, and then when I can come back and see the results of it, it's fantastic. You know, without having to have gone through any of that pain myself, if you like, of having to make sure it's all happening and everything, because it's being done more efficiently. I think with every nursery owner, we have so many things to do that, you know, it's kind of, oh, it's easier, quicker if I do this, or if I do that, or I'll just do that. But actually, if you want something that's going to work in your operations and be sustainable, it needs to be project managed and implemented effectively. So I'm not saying that you guys can't do that, but how much time can you devote to doing that? That sort of thing. Now, your project manager, you know, when you've got a single nursery, this is your manager effectively at this point. But if you're looking to grow and if you're looking to move forward, then having that able other is really quite useful, quite important. Okay, so that's our going round of the 5 levels of the operations side of things. So I'm just going to ask you guys now to just score yourselves on those 5 aspects, and come up with, you know, where you think you are, and that'll give you an idea of you know, what you need to work on in order to take the next step, you know, to make that that next improvement in whichever area that you need. So starting from the workflow, you know, building that out, because that then leads into you know, what we can systemize and what we can use IT systems for and things like that. And then that, which feeds into how we're going to manage it, what we need to be mindful of from a security and a backup perspective, and then in the future, you know, having somebody else to do that. Okay, so we'll have some time for questions. I will remind some of you guys that you've still got the opportunity here to join our mastermind if you wanted to. And Charlotte, I know, hasn't been to a mastermind yet, so she's able to come along for a trial session with us. But if you haven't joined mastermind yet, then, you know, we're meeting once a month, and it's a time to, you know, like this, but in more detail. You get to bring your issues forward with a group of other nursery owners. So you can do that, just join mastermind on its own. If anybody wanted to have like a review session, a strategy session, then if you're sort of buying this sort of separately, not as part of the original package, then that will cost $595. So that's, again, spending sort of 3.5 hours with me, and we would revisit your smart sheet. We, you know, check your progress, see how you're moving forward, bring in, you know, any new information that you've got and things. So that's there and available for people. And then if you wanted to take part in coaching, then I still have 1 slot available for one-to-one coaching. So and with the coaching, you get the mastermind as well, and obviously you get to join in the masterclasses. I'm happy for everybody to join in the masterclasses, that's fine. So you know, just get in touch with me at any point if that's something any of you want to jump into at any time. And not forgetting, you're probably all in the Facebook group, I'm not sure. If you know other nursery owners who would like to be in the Facebook group, please, you know, ask them to ask to join, or invite them to join. And if I see it's from you guys, then I will, you know, add them automatically. It is a vetted group. It's a group which uniquely, from my perspective, has the owners and the managers in. So this is more about, you know, business development, business knowledge, not just about owners. This is sort of collaborative. You know, we're not, from my point of view, I'm not in this on my own. I'm in this with my team. So Emma's in the group. My operations director, Anita as well. She's our operations manager. So so, you know, I've got my team in the group, so they know when I'm posting things in there, it's important stuff that they need to be mindful of, and, you know, that sort of thing. So Emma said she was quite glad the other day when I posted in there about child-minding agencies, and that as an entrepreneur, I'd love to open one, but I don't think I have enough knowledge of child-minding per se. But that might be one for you, Melissa. So anyway, I will stop the sharing there. I can see